Did you know that the average person is exposed to hundreds of toxins every day? The average woman applies 168 chemicals to her face daily. Men, closer to 85. There was a landmark study done in 2005 by the Environmental Working Group that found 200 industrial chemicals and pollutants in newborn cord blood. The follow-up study in 2016 showed that pregnant women had very high levels in exposure to chemicals and toxins, but the levels were even higher in the newborns than in the mom. This is a problem, and it's starting at birth. This constant assault by environmental toxins and pollutants on our system overwhelm us. They disrupt our hormones, inflame our tissues, accelerate aging. They lead to chronic fatigue, weight gain, and other chronic diseases, potentially even cancer. Our bodies are amazing, and they are designed to detox if given the right support. And in the world that we live in, with this constant onslaught of toxins and exposures, the body needs a good amount of help. Detoxing is not a cleansing trend. It's a vital, ongoing process for overall health and wellness. Today, we'll uncover what's going on beneath the surface and rediscover how your body can thrive in a toxic world. We have inherent detoxification systems in place in our body. There are several organs that we have designed to help us detox. Our liver, our kidney, our GI system, our lungs, our skin, and our lymphatic system. We've got the resources there to do it. But this modern toxic burden can very quickly overload our system, especially when these toxins are accumulating from our mothers and their mothers and their mothers' mothers. It all adds up, and our bodies get it. They are designed to help us, but we need to help them. Let's dive in a little bit more so I can tell you and teach you a little bit more about how our body detoxifies it and what it can do. Let's dive in a little bit more so I can teach you more about how the body detoxifies and where the superstars are. Our number one detoxification superstar is the liver. This is where we process and eliminate most of our toxins. There's two major phases here where the liver helps to process toxins. Phase 1 is mostly a cytochrome P450 enzyme-based process. This is where we turn toxins into metabolites, intermediate metabolites. Sometimes these intermediate metabolites can actually be more toxic than the toxin itself. Well, why is that? Well, think of it a little bit like you're breaking down a wall. When you break down the wall, it's messy, and then you've got a pile of things that need to be cleaned up. And that's where phase 2 comes in. So phase 2 is the cleanup crew. This is where the toxins get neutralized. They become water soluble so that you can eliminate them. There are six pathways here, six pathways of detoxification: glutathione conjugation, sulfation, methylation, glucuronidation, amino acid conjugation, and acetylation. That's a mouthful. Let me help you break it down and work through my support tools to work through detox. My strategy for detox boils down to 3 core principles. 1, reduce exposure. 2, flush out the toxins. And 3, bind up the toxins. So let me talk about this in a little more detail. First and foremost, we want to try to reduce our exposures. Now listen, you cannot live in a bubble, meaning you can't avoid every single toxin in your life. It's just not feasible. But there is a lot you can do, and there are areas of our life that we have more control over that we can help reduce those exposures. So let's focus on those and what we can do. So the first one I think about is air quality. When we think about the air that we breathe, sometimes our indoor air quality is actually worse than the outdoor air quality. Things like mold toxins, VOCs, these things can actually torment us inside our homes. If you've had any water damage at home, leaky roof, leaky basement, leaky windows, things like that, you might want to think about potential mold as a source of toxins in your life. Now, it's not always quite so obvious. Black mold up the wall, for example. Sometimes it's a little sneaky and it can be behind the wall. But if you have dripping or water contamination or you're at all concerned, you can get your house tested. I've included a mold handout as part of the information that goes along with this course that will dive into this in a little more detail and give you resources and websites that you can use. But you can test your home fairly well to get a good idea if there is a high mycotoxin burden in your home. There are dust samples using an ERMI or HERTSMI technology, for example. There's EMA testing, there's mold plates that you can do to try to get a better handle if your home has mycotoxins in them. If your home does have mold toxins, you want to remediate. And you want someone who's going to remediate and get rid of the source and clean out the mess and treat it like it's asbestos. So they need to cordon off the section with plastic. They need to wear hazmat suits. They have air scrubbers. It's kind of a big deal. Mold toxins are extremely toxic and they need to be handled properly. One way that we can help clear our indoor air is to use air purifiers. You can buy air filters, HEPA filters, etc. at Home Depot. Those are great for indoor allergies, but they are not going to clear out the microscopic nanoparticle toxins in your system. You need a good quality air purifier in your home. These are going to get down to nanometer particle size and clear out things like mycotoxins that we mentioned, but VOCs and other air pollutants as well. My favorite is a brand called Molecule. I will link you to a discount code for Molecules that will be included in this course. I love the Molecules. They clear out mycotoxins. They have also been shown to help clear out certain viruses from the air, including coronaviruses. It's another thing we don't always think about in our air quality is just what else are we breathing in? And so this is one more tool to help keep your air as clean as possible. Water quality is another area that's really important for our overall health. Ask anybody who's lived in an environment where lead or other pollutants are in the water. It's extremely disruptive and cause major issues. There are studies you can actually look and see what levels of contaminants are in your city's water. Some of these things will include hormones or pesticides or other pollutants in our water. It can be kind of disturbing actually to look at what all is in there. You can get whole house water purifiers. There's a couple brands that I have found to be helpful or useful. One is Aquasana, another is APEC. You can also get reverse osmosis water filters for your drinking water. This is one step further. Reverse osmosis or other water purifiers are going to get rid of 99.9% of pollutants in your water. There are these reverse osmosis water filters. There are also some that are pretty darn good that are just a countertop water purifier like Borax. So there's options here that you can use to help immediately start to clean up your water sources. Water also can sometimes really bother us in our shower or even our laundry if our water has other contaminants in it. They do make shower filters as well that you can put on your shower head. And a lot of people who use these find that their hair feels better, their skin feels better. They just feel things are glowing like they weren't before. So look into some different aspects of ways that you can make sure you're trying to get better, cleaner water. Side note, if you're going to use a reverse osmosis or water purifier, please look into replacing your minerals. Trace minerals will also get excreted from these purifiers. Most of us are deficient in our trace minerals anyway. So if we're deficient already and then we're drinking water that has those trace minerals removed, we may become even more deficient. So it's as simple as just putting a few drops in your water bottle after you get your reverse osmosis water. Another big area of concern for toxins is food. So how do we reduce our exposure to toxins in our food? Well, one obvious step is to eat organic. This can be kind of expensive. There is a list called the Dirty Dozen. So the Environmental Working Group puts out a list every year. These are the fruits and vegetables that have the highest burden of toxins and pesticides on them. If you can at least focus on those and trying to get those from organic sources, you can dramatically reduce your pesticide burden from food. Washing your fruits and vegetables will help as well. And you can also try to get meats that are pasture raised, etc. Things that are going to, again, try to reduce our overall toxin burden. Highly processed foods, food dyes, these things are also very, very toxic. A good rule of thumb is to try to do most of your grocery shopping along the outskirts of the grocery store. So the Whole Foods, fruits, fish, meat, all the stuff that you had to make it whole, but it doesn't have all those extra colors or other toxins. One more comment about food and water, to be fair, is plastic. Microplastics are becoming a bigger and bigger known issue in our world. There's so many of us drinking from plastic water bottles, eating our food from plastic containers. It's hard to avoid it, but it is an area where perhaps we can change to glass containers or a stainless steel water bottle. That's another way that we can help reduce some toxins in our system. I mentioned at the beginning that women put 168 chemicals on their body every day. Men, less so. Around 85 is the average there. So it is important to look at your beauty products and make sure that you are not adding to your toxic burden just from your beauty program and routine. Environmental Working Group has an app and an area on their website called Skin Deep. There's other apps called Yucca. These things can help you look at the materials that you're using, the brands that you're using, and see if they are considered safe or if they have high levels of endocrine disruptors or other toxins that can really cause havoc. At the end of the day, when we think about reducing our exposure, we are trying to keep our toxin bucket from overflowing. Think about a sink. Let's use a sink analogy here. Our body has a drain, it has an outflow system, but it gets overloaded. And if we are pouring more and more and more toxins into that sink than the drain can handle, the sink overflows. That happens in our bodies on a regular basis. So the more we can turn down the spigot and reduce our exposure, we're gonna help our body help to clear out these toxins better, more effectively. All right, so step one is to try to reduce our overall burden of toxin exposure. Step two is helping make sure your system is flushing those toxins out. So we're trying to open up the drain here and make sure it's easier for your body to clear out the toxins. Pooping, peeing, sweating, these are all fundamental to elimination and clearing toxins out of your system. The more open these pathways are, the less that sink gets clogged up. And here are some ways to help support that. One is constipation. If you are constipated, you are not eliminating toxins from your system. When that stool sits inside of you, those toxins just get reaccumulated into your system, creating more havoc. So it's really important that you're pooping every day, good healthy bowel movement that doesn't strain or stick and feels like everything is getting out. I love talking about poop. It's the best part of my job. But it's important and it really makes a difference when we're coming to detox, when we discuss detox. So what are some ways that you can help support that? Magnesium is a great way to do that, specifically magnesium citrate. That tends to be a little better form of magnesium for constipation. There are foods that are also very helpful for constipation. Prunes are, an old standby. I also find that putting a prune or two in your water bottle actually also helps with that, especially in little ones that may or may not like to eat the prunes. Artichokes are another great food that help with GI motility and help to flush out toxins, and ginger is another great one as well. Another tool that I will use, I call bowel training, especially if constipation is an issue. In the morning, wake up, have a warm glass of water with some lemon in it. Watch your teeth. If you're going to drink a lot of lemon water, maybe use a straw. And then go sit on the commode. Sit there for 10 or 15 minutes. Don't stress, don't strain, just sit there. If nothing happens, get up and move with your day. Continue to do this every day. Your body will start to learn that that's the time to eliminate and can really help get you in a more regular bowel pattern, which is utterly important for detox. Another way that we get rid of toxins from our system is sweat. What can actually release heavy metals or pesticides from our system? I'll admit there needs to be a lot more research behind this, but the vast majority of my patients feel better when they start to sweat. When you're sweating, it can be sweating through exercise. It can be sweating in a sauna. IR saunas tend to be the best, but really any kind of sauna and any kind of sweating will make me happy. If you are able to sweat and you're able to sweat on a regular basis, this is another time you want to remember to replace trace minerals and electrolytes because we lose those in sweat as well. So it's important to make sure you're getting those back with your hydration and stay hydrated when you're sweating a lot. Another big important aspect of toxins and flushing out the toxins is our lymphatic system. Our lymphatic system is a big waste highway. It's another great way for us to clear toxins out of our system. And you can support your lymphatics in several different ways. Movement in and of itself helps with lymphatics. The muscles help to push and pump the lymphatics clear out of your system. You can do dry brushing. You can get a boar's head brush, and before a shower, dry brush your limbs and your legs towards your heart. Just really gentle. That helps. That superficial touch helps to get that lymphatic system moving. You can even go farther and get a lymphatic massage. There are special massages out there, which are very superficial, but very lymphatic draining and can make a huge impact if your lymph system is not working properly. Another great lymphatic support is actually rebounding, which is bouncing on a trampoline. And it does not need to be jumping. It can just be bouncing. That also can really help those lymphatics flush out and repair. And don't forget about the liver. The liver is what processes these toxins. So if we are supporting our liver, we're supporting our body's way of flushing and working out these toxins. Foods that are really especially helpful for this are cruciferous or brassica vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, kale, also garlic, onions, berries, meat, the green leafy vegetables, seeds, basically good, healthy, whole foods. These are going to support your liver so it's working properly to help process all of those toxins so you can clear them out. A couple other things that are especially helpful for the liver is magnesium, which often we are deficient in. And so supplementing that can be very helpful, as well as antioxidants. These are all of the phytonutrients and things that are going to come from those whole fruits and veggies and things that we talked about before. So a lot we can do food-wise to help support our liver in phase 1 and phase 2 of that process. So some extra adjunctive support to help you flush out the toxins. I've mentioned a few before, but let me repeat some of these because there are some other great tools you can use to help flush out toxins. One are saunas. Infrared saunas help get more deeper penetrated heat and can be great, but it doesn't have to be an IR sauna. It could be any kind of sauna really to get you sweating. Rebounding, which is that bouncing on the trampoline, helps with lymphatic drainage, as well as dry brushing helps with lymphatic drainage. These are other tools you can use. There's a couple others. One are castor oil packs. Castor oil packs are a little messy. They use castor oil on a rag with heat, and typically we'll put it on our liver to help stimulate blood flow and detox support to the liver. Little tip here, you can also use this on your uterus if you're having chronic swimming, so it can be very helpful during your period as well. Another really super fun way to clear out toxins is a coffee enema. I say that a little tongue in cheek. It's really kind of hard for me to convince people to do coffee enemas. Enemas in our culture they're awkward and we don't like to talk about them or do them, but a vast majority of the patients that I can convince to actually do this feel a lot better. It's exactly what it sounds like. You use organic, non-toxic coffee, cooled off in an enema setting. But that coffee and that caffeine and the antioxidants in the coffee, actually the blood flow from the colon when you use the enema go directly to the liver. And that really helps to stimulate toxin flushing out and clearing out. And it can do wonders to really fix and to solve a lot of issues. So that's not something I recommend people do every single day. It's maybe once, twice a week, especially if you're toxic, maybe 3 times a week. But it is another valuable tool. And I will link you to some instructions as well on how to do that. Step 1 was reduce exposure. Step 2 was to help flush out those toxins. Step 3 is to bind those toxins up. Usually we need some sort of support. We need a sponge in there to help mop up all of the excess toxins that we've started to move around. So there's several different ways to go about this, and there's several different groups of binders that you can use. And often we are going to use a combination of different binders depending on what's going on. Binders can bind you up. They can cause constipation. That is usually dose dependent. But ironically, sometimes the binders actually help with bowel movement. You don't really know until you get in there, but you have to play around with some different choices and figure out what works best for your body. One group of binders is more natural substances from the soil. So we've got charcoal, we've got clay, zeolite, chlorella, and humic and fulvic acids. So these are, all from the earth. These are plants and minerals and things that we can take that help to act as a sponge, like I said, and help to clear these toxins out of our system. There are other areas of binders as well. There are a group called chelators. These help to neutralize heavy metals. Those are usually going to be something called DMSA or EDTA. There's a couple others as well that can help to support that. There are actually even some prescription binders that we will use, especially with heavy mycotoxin burden. One is called cholestyramine. This is actually a bile acid salt sequesterer. It's an old school medicine actually for cholesterol. It tends to cause a lot of constipation, but it can be very, very helpful if you've got a high mycotoxin burden. There's another prescription called Welchol that is similar and often easier to take than the cholestyramine, but there are tools here that you can use to help. Some of my other kind of off the beaten path binders, if you will, I'm not sure they fully fit into that binder bucket, but they do seem to help really kind of mop up the toxins, are certain fatty acids, phosphatidylcholine, and then butyrate, or other short chain fatty acids. These help even on a cellular level to really kind of pop out these toxins so that we can clear them away. And one more that's also really good is fiber. There's a specific fiber called glucomannan, which is shown especially to help with certain mycotoxins and pulling that out of your system. Now, this is a very small list. There is a lot more available out there. I mentioned I typically am doing a combination of different binders so I can get different toxins to clear out of the system a little bit better. But there's a lot of options. There's a lot of things you can play with. Another one is modified citrus pectin as well. So the list goes on. There's a lot of different tools here that you can use to help clean up your system. It's not necessarily something you need to take every day. So we can often get away with 1 or 2 times a week. If we're dealing with a big toxin burden, I will use them every day. Most binders are going to be best on an empty stomach. Some of them are better with food. Some can be with food. But the problem is with the binder, they're binders. So if you take them with a bunch of pills, you could very theoretically bind up all of those pills and flush them down the toilet. And what is the point of taking all those pills in that sense? So we typically recommend them, generally speaking, on an empty stomach to keep them apart from that so that we reduce that possibility. Let's put all of this together. I'm going to walk you through a couple examples of some different detox protocols that have worked for my patients. I'm going to start with a gentle detox protocol, and then we can move on to a more advanced protocol as well. Now, the reason why we have a gentle detox protocol is not necessarily because someone is sicker or not sicker or where we are, but it's about your body's burden and your body's ability to handle toxins. If you've never really started to push toxins or mobilize toxins in your system, if you start too fast, you can make everything worse. Your system is only going to be able to tolerate so much. So if you add a high toxin burden to your system, your immune system is going to react to that and you're going to feel sick. It can be flu-like, fatigue, brain fog. You can get overwhelmed with that toxin burden. So it's very, very important when you're detoxing to start very slow and ease into it. So if you've never done any sort of detox support, you might want to start with a more gentle toxin support, and then you can move on to more advanced protocols in the future. It's not a bad idea for most Americans or most humans, for that matter, to do some sort of gentle detox support on a fairly regular basis. Doesn't necessarily mean every day, but maybe you do a couple weeks here and a couple weeks, a few months later. There's this chronic onslaught of toxin burden, as I mentioned. So we have to constantly keep up with this. We have to constantly make sure that our system is helping to flush out these toxins. Okay, so let me jump in. So let me begin. First and foremost, no matter what protocol you're going to do for detox, go back to ways to reduce your exposure. You're going to get better faster if you can help, even in the slightest bit, to help reduce some of that toxin burden in your system. So when we talk about gentle detox and a gentle detox program, for example, mobilizing those toxins and starting to get them moving from your system, I like to start with some lymphatic support. So dry brushing is a very gentle way to get those toxins moving. Epsom salts are another really nice, gentle way to support detox movement in your system. They're also a great way to support sleep, promote relaxation. You want to make sure you're getting enough Epsom salt in your bath. I recommend at least 2 cups of Epsom salt in your bath. So not just a little bit. You need a good amount of Epsom salt to make this worthwhile. You could start with an Epsom salt bath once or twice a week to gently introduce this into your system. I would recommend doing it closer to bedtime because it also can make you sleepy and promote sleep. So that's a good time to do it. There are other detox supporting herbs, lymphatic supporting herbs specifically, that you could add to this mix. Things like poke root, cleavers, dandelion. These gently help that lymphatic system move and mobilize those toxins. I also, in this gentle detox, like to support the liver. And there are supplements that you can do to support this, things like milk thistle, alpha lipoic acid, N-acetylcysteine, taurine. There's combinations of these out there that are going to help feed that liver and help phase 1 and 2 to mobilize. And obviously, detox supporting foods, those cruciferous vegetables, green leafy vegetables, berries, these are all going to help your liver support detox processes. So if all else fails and you don't know where else to start, add extra detox supporting foods to your diet. One of the more gentle binders that I start with is modified citrus pectin. This one can come in a powder or a pill form. The powder forms actually have some good flavor to them. You can put them in your water. It makes it pretty easy to help with this. Modified citrus pectin also helps specifically with the brain. It can neutralize some of the toxins, so it can help with the brain fog and mental clarity as well. And you can start low and build up. You don't have to start with a full dose, but you could go up to 3 times a day with modified citrus pectin, but it's not a bad idea to start with once or twice a week just to slowly introduce that. These binders are especially helpful after you've done something like an Epsom salt soak. So you've done the Epsom salt soak, you're starting to move those toxins, then you take that binder to help sponge up and mop up. Now, if we want to move on to a little more advanced detox protocol, we can build upon what we've already started here. So mobilizing the toxins is important. We can increase that by doing saunas. So IR saunas especially, up to 2 to 3 times a week. If you've never done a sauna, I do recommend you start low, 15 minutes perhaps. You could work up to 45 minutes or so. You also want to get sweating. So sometimes when we first start doing saunas, we don't sweat. It's not a good thing. That's actually your system still holding on to this. The more you go to the sauna, the easier it will be to sweat. You will start to sweat sooner and earlier in that process. You can get rid of more toxins. That would be a clear sign to you that this is working and helping. So we can also beef up the modalities to help flush out the toxins by getting a lymphatic massage. So you need to find someone in your area who specializes in this, but that can do wonders and very calming and relaxing. We also have a device in our clinic called a Flowpresso, which is a machine that offers compression, some IR sauna and vibration, along with the lymphatic compression. It can be very relaxing and a great way to beef up your toxin movement and flushing of the toxins. Supplemental wise, we still want to support the liver when it comes to a more intense detox with the milk thistle, like alpha lipoic acid, but I like to add glutathione at this stage. So glutathione is your body's most potent antioxidant and detoxifier. This does wonders to help flush out those toxins and really get those pathways moving. If you remember from phase 2 of the liver support, one of those pathways that I listed is glutathione conjugation. So glutathione is an important part of the overall process here right from the get-go. So replacing that is important. And we don't really store glutathione in our bodies, so we use up what we have. So this just really helps to support your system and get those pathways moving. The next thing I added would be phosphatidylcholine. So this is a fatty acid that's really important for your cell membranes. So the most important fatty acid of all of our cell membranes. And this When we take phosphatidylcholine, it helps support detox not only in the liver, but also on our cell membrane. So every single cell membrane starts to detox and heal and repair. Phosphatidylcholine, side note, is used intravenously in European countries to treat things like cirrhosis, which is a severe disease of the liver. Phosphatidylcholine is very, very, very supportive to the liver. So this is a great tool to add to help your body flush out toxins and mop them up. When we talk about binders and it becomes, in our more advanced protocols, I'm going to use a binder that's going to combine multiple different kinds of binders. So something that has charcoal, zeolite, clay, silica, fibers, multiple different things to get multiple kinds of toxins. And these come in pills, they come in powders as well. So there's a lot of different ways to get these binder combinations in your system. I've mapped out all of these supplements and detox protocols in detail for you in the included materials with this, including links to my trusted supplements and things that have helped my patients over the years really flush out toxins. So take a look at those, look at that in more detail, and hopefully you'll start to see some great detox process from all of this. I mentioned earlier that if you detox too much too fast, it can be overwhelming. So a big tip, just to reiterate, is go slow, especially if you've never detoxed before. And if you start a detox pathway or start some supplements and you feel worse or you feel like you have the flu, it's a detox reaction. That may mean that your body is going too fast. That doesn't mean continue on and push through. That probably means you need to back off a little bit and go slower. So lower doses, less frequent. Listen to your body. It will tell you what's too much and too little. If you start these and you feel absolutely nothing, maybe you do need to do more. So listen to what your body tells you. There are other tools out there that you can utilize as well. There are lab testing these days that you can do to test your system for mold toxins, pesticides, the list goes on, environmental toxins, heavy metals. You can have these tests done. Talk to your provider if you are curious and interested to know more about the specific impact these toxins are having on your body and what is in you. Those labs can help us direct your binders or your other treatments so that we are specifically tailored to what is in you and what is in your system. Some of those tests are out of pocket, some are not, but really just talk to your provider and see what makes sense for you to have done. Don't forget, small changes here can have big impacts. Even just changing your food and trying to incorporate more sulfur-containing foods like broccoli and onions can go a long, long way to helping you feel better. So make those small steps and increase as you go. Look, we live in a toxic world. Exposure is unavoidable. It's not a matter of if, but when and how much. Heavy metals, pesticides, mycotoxins, endocrine disruptors, they are in our air, in our water, in our food. These toxins are linked to hormonal disruptions, chronic diseases, neurodegenerative diseases, even cancer. Toxins also don't just pass through us, they accumulate and we pass them on to our children. Detoxification is no longer a luxury, it is a necessity. We have to help our system deal with everything that it's being exposed to. We need to find these daily practices and ways to help support our body do what it's trained to do in this overwhelming burden that it's being exposed to. Detox is not a quick fix. It's not a trendy cleanse. It is about building resilience and vitality for the long haul.